right. So let's talk a little bit about our purpose for today. Our learning intention is we will learn how to support learning through a balanced literacy framework in any context. So we will be revisiting that balanced literacy framework. Our success criteria, we will be successful when we understand essential learning for our students and can find and create resources to support that learning. We will revisit this purpose at the end of the presentation to see if we've met the success criteria for you. I'd like to just bring your attention to this quote here. Whatever happens, it'll be rocky and imperfect. I have not yet had a perfect session, just being completely honest and transparent. Little things go wrong, but really the 4 words within this text I think are really important, and that are the words grace, flexibility, resilience, and creativity, that we don't give up, that sometimes we need to change things just a little because how we originally planned things just didn't work out. Not only giving ourselves grace, we're going to make mistakes through this, but giving each other some grace and teaching our students how to build these things for themselves as well. The creativity part is going to come in when you see that what we've created for you is the floor. It is very, very basic. It's the foundation, and you are going to be creative with what you add to it. So now let's talk a little bit about the why. Why did the Return to School Task Force come about creating all of this for you? So the first reason is we recognize that there was going to be some significant learning loss with our students, with them not being in the classroom for so many months. We also realized we needed to narrow the learning down. We needed to have a better focus for what we wanted our students to master by the end of the year. The final thing is a need for resources. So my feeling is, as a coach, if I can provide for you resources and lessons that you can go into your class in August and hit the ground running, then you're in a better place to be able to focus on, okay, how am I going to deliver the content? This way you're not focusing on both things simultaneously. So hopefully we're going to relieve a little bit of stress and anxiety for you along the way. So while I'm talking about the why, I'm going to talk about the who. The Return to School Task Force was a group of, I believe, over 50 teachers, coaches, program specialists who worked, we really did work together here. So the 6th grade presentation looks very much like the 7th and the 8th and the 5th grade presentation, because we all aligned what we were doing, so it's organized in a very similar manner. Jaleese and I were tasked with the 6th grade curriculum, and of course Montreal Henry, and I believe she is here and she wants to say hello. She also was our guide along the way. So we're going to begin with the essential learning standards. So here on the right-hand side, this is what we presented at Summer Institute last year. You can see there were over 7 essential learning standards that we were trying to weave in to each of the units. And then we had all of our reading behaviors listed separately. Now what we've done is we've streamlined that. And so when you get a chance to dive into the essential learning, which you're going to do in a few minutes, you're going to see the changes that have been made. The changes I want to call out to you are that in blue highlight, these are the ELD standards. So they've been included in the ELA standards, which is amazing. The PIB6, all that means is when you look at the ELD standards, it's Part 1, Section B, Standard 6. That's what those mean. You'll also see that everything is organized for you month by month, and it's in 3-week chunks. You will have essential learning standards for the entire year. Yes, essential learning standards and chunks for the entire year, which is amazing. Also listed below each standard are the reading behaviors. So everything is organized a little bit differently this year. So this is where you can find the essential learning standards for every grade level. There is a folder which includes them all. I believe I linked, yes I did. So this is the full document of 6th grade essential standards. ELA and ELD is at the beginning of the document. At the very end of the document, you'll see the math standards as well. I'm going to go back to our PD because on the very next page is your task. So I'm going to give you some time to explore. I really want you to dive in, dig in, see what's different, see how the document is organized. Think about ways the learning's been narrowed. Think about how comprehension builds throughout the year. And then you're going to go to a Padlet. And you're going to answer this question. What are some ways this could be useful for planning and teaching this year? So the presentation link is at the bottom of your screen. As soon as my mouse moves, there it is. And Jaleese will be putting this in the chat as well so that you can get right to the presentation to get to the links that you need. So you'll have 10 minutes to do the following things. You will, 1, look at the essential learning standards. You will, 2, answer the question, what are some ways this could be useful? And you're going to do that on the Padlet, which is unique to this session. If you've never used Padlet before, it's great. It's free. You can have 4 live Padlets at one time. After that, you can archive a Padlet, and then you can build a new one. You'll click on the plus, which turns into a pencil. You can title it. You can put your name. You can put just a brief summary. You can write something. So I'm going to put thoughts. This is amazing. And then once I click off of it, my Padlet's there. What's great about Padlet to use with your students is students can go in, they can like someone else's post, or they can add a comment. So it's a great way to build in some nonverbal collaboration within your classroom. So back to your task. And if there are any questions, you can put your questions in the chat and we'll help you out. But you have the next 10 minutes to explore. If you have extra time, please take a quick stretch break. All right, we're moving into our last minute. If you need to take a quick stretch break. I see many of you responding in the Padlet, which is awesome. If you want to go in and read what other people have said, either like what they've said or respond to what they've said, you can use your final 42 seconds for that purpose. Okay, so if I can have you all return, the Padlet is unique to your session, and this slideshow is unique to your session. So please feel free to go in if you want to read what other participants have said. Again, Padlet allows you to download your student responses, which is great because then you can add a new Padlet for free. You can have 4 maximum. If you want to earn more Padlets, you can refer other teachers. For every teacher you refer, I believe you get 1 new Padlet, which is pretty cool. So in this slideshow, I have a link to my referral code. So if you plan to use Padlet, please use my referral code and I can earn some extras, please. So we're going to move on now and talk just really briefly about balanced literacy. Because our district, we've spent so much time focusing on balanced literacy. For many years, we focused on that guided reading piece. Last year, we began to bring in what does it look like when doing a read aloud and with a shared read. This presentation, we're going to talk a little bit more about read alouds and shared readings. In fact, some of the lessons we built were specific to read aloud, shared readings, and brief writes or longer writes. We do have a little bit of independent learning for you about independent reading as well at the end, along with many, many resources, more than you're ever going to want, hopefully, in regards to independent reading and to further your learning on many of these areas. So just talking a little bit about scheduling, as you were checking in, I could quickly take count that we have about 10 of you who are at the middle school level and the majority of you who are at the elementary level. And so your schedules look a little bit different. So I want to talk about how the lessons work. So for elementary, as of right now, this is the plan that was presented at the town hall. You have about 60 minutes daily for ELA. And you're also integrating science and history. Middle school, you have that AB week where your 90-minute periods kind of flip-flop with each other. The lessons we created and that we're going to be walking you through are created to be about 30 to 45-minute chunks of time. So that's going to fall into your synchronous learning. Our lessons are designed to be your live, in-person, or in Zoom lessons. And that's going to leave you some time for your asynchronous learning. For if you're creating videos and doing some flipped learning for your students, if you're assigning independent work or that independent reading, or they're doing some of their independent practice. That's going to fall into asynchronous, and that's going to be you and your PLC team discussing what that looks like. So we're going to talk a little bit about the unit overview. So we took those essential learning standards and we created a first unit overview. And this unit is 9 weeks long that you're going to see in just a few minutes. What we did was we integrated the following things. We integrated study sync. So the novel, The Lightning Thief, is the novel that was chosen to begin mostly because of this essential question: how does literature help us find hope? And we can all use a little bit of hope right now as we tread these waters that are very unique and new to us. So StudySync has a great unit plan built around the Lightning Thief. And not only is it ELA based, but StudySync also has an entire ELD unit attached to Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. So again, this is the foundation. As long as you are teaching the essential learning standards, you can change up. If you had planned to use maybe Hatchet, you can still use that text. You're just going to focus on those essential learning standards that we gave you in that essential learning document. And maybe you'll save these lessons for later. We also worked heavily with Jennifer Saravallo's Reading Strategies book, which was provided for you at last year's Summer Institute. If you do not have a copy of this book, what we did was for every lesson where we used a strategy, we took a picture of the page in the book for you to have access to. So you will have access to all of the resources that you need that are built into these lessons. For some lessons, we built in Achieve lessons as well. So quite a bit of various resources went into the planning here. Robert, it looks like you raised your hand. You have a question?
Will they have a hard copy? Will they have the book?
That is a great question. So as of right now, because we do not know what we are allowed to provide to students, what we have done is provide you with a PDF copy of the Lightning Thief, and that will be in the, it's not in the unit plan, it is on the web page, and we'll be going there later in the presentation and showing you where that is.
Okay.
So I'm going to pop into this, into Unit 1, and just show you how the unit is outlined. Taking a minute to load. There we go. Okay, so I did provide you with a launch. So a launch is just a one-day way to get your students familiar with what the essential question is for the entire unit. It's a way to, if you do a pre-write, you are getting a little bit of a formative assessment on what their writing skills are like. You're doing a little bit of building background and engaging prior knowledge with the hanging hashtags activity. And you're showing them a really quick video in StudySync. So you will need access to StudySync. We could not link that directly. Once you log in, you'll be able to find this. So this entire launch should take no more than one day. You'll notice launch in blue is highlighted. There is a full lesson plan that goes along with the launch. We provided you with a copy of the comprehension continuum, and all of the lessons that we created for you, we took questions from the comprehension continuum to be a part of the lesson. So they are a part of the collaborative conversation. Then as you move in, I just want to guide you through how this is organized, and then I'll let you go to explore some more. So at the top, we have the read aloud lesson plan, then you have a shared read lesson plan, and then you have a writing lesson plan. So the reading lesson plan, we chunked it in two parts because it can get a little bit long. So you have a lesson for each. Below, you have all of the reading behaviors that are embedded within the lesson plan that we've provided for you. There is a list of vocabulary that we've picked out for you to explicitly focus on during your lesson. Your standards are listed, and then there's some additional links at the bottom, which we will explore in a little bit. So the progression does move from left to right, and here's the purpose behind that. For week 1 in the read aloud, students are going to be listening to chapter 1, and then on the next lesson, you're going to go back and you're going to do a close read of a piece of text they've already listened to. So now you're going to read together, and they're really going to focus in on making some meaning of the text, and they're going to be using this strategy. In a few minutes later in the presentation, I'm actually going to walk you through this shared read lesson and what it would look like for you. And then finally, at the end, the writing prompt is really a culmination of everything you've discussed in the previous lessons. They're now going to have a really good handle on how do I answer this question. So you will model one response, and then they'll have all of the tools and information they need to create their own independent response. So I'm going to exit out of this and go back to the presentation, because at this point, I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to look at that unit. If you have any questions, please pop them into the chat. As you're looking at the unit, please be prepared that you are going to be moving into some breakout rooms. And I want you thinking about what are some ways you will use this unit plan as a guide for the rest of the unit and year, and how might you enhance the unit plan for those asynchronous learning opportunities. So I'll put you in breakout rooms when we come back. I want to give you 5 minutes of just you exploring and making sure we have questions answered. Okay, so you have 5 minutes to explore. All right, and just bringing you back. As we prepare to go into your breakout sessions, just to give you a heads up on what you'll be doing. So if you have a link to the presentation, or at least if one person in your group has a link to the presentation, it's going to take you to a set of slides. And I'll click on that now. So please look at which breakout room you are in. If you are in breakout room 1, you'll be working on this slide for room 1. And there are 2 questions for you to discuss. What are some ways that you will use the plan? And in what ways might you add or enhance the unit to include asynchronous learning opportunities? Again, this is another collaborative way for your students to be able to discuss. And this could be whether they're speaking or just typing. So I am going to put you in rooms now, and your breakout room will appear at the top of your screen. And I'll give you about 5 minutes to work in your breakout rooms. Okay, welcome back. Bringing you all back to the main session. So I know that was very quick with your students. You may give them some additional time. What I would do now is with the classroom, I might do a virtual carousel or virtual gallery walk and have all the participants in room 1, then go to room 2, share something out that was different than what was discussed within their own group, or have them highlight something that they noticed that they thought was a really good idea. Just sharing with you. We'll go through some of the pages really quickly. So room 2, planned pacing guide. Everything is planned out. There's a routine in the pace. Awesome ideas there. Room 3, easy for coaches and mentors. Absolutely, as well as substitutes if needed, if need be. You each have a plan. So you might add a weekly journal. Absolutely, that's a great idea. Room 4, use it as a template and add to it throughout the year. Absolutely. And what we're doing is kind of providing that gradual release of responsibility to you so that by week 5, you are planning all on your own. So absolutely assigning videos and achieve, independent writing, having students read to themselves, that's critically important. Room 6, again, as a guide throughout the year to look back upon, absolutely. Adding the hanging hashtags activity. That activity, by the way, came from Elevation. It's an EL strategy, very effective, very engaging. It is a lot of fun. I've seen it in action. Room 7, a good pacing guide to stay on track. And finished with room 8. All right, so thank you to all of those groups who you added to that collaboration template. If you have ideas and you come back to this presentation later and you want to add to it, please feel free to, especially as many participants will be looking at this, coming up with ideas on their own for how they are going to use this for instruction. So we are going to move along here. And we're going to look at a lesson. So we've seen the essential standards and behaviors. We've looked at the unit plan and the backwards mapping that's taken place. And now we're going to look at a specific lesson. So I'm going to click on a lesson here and share with you what this looks like. Again, I believe it's TK through 8. All of the lesson plan documents look very similar. They're all organized in a similar manner. So here we have a shared read that we're going to go through. It is for week 1. It's one lesson. Your technology that you may need is listed for you. Your reading behaviors are listed for you. Your standards are listed. We even wrote your learning intentions and success criteria for you. So those are ready to go. All the materials you'll need are listed as well as links. So when the first and second session, I used a PDF copy and participants asked for a doc copy. So I created that and placed it in the lesson plan for you. We created slides for you, which you can choose to use. You can choose to create your own. The discussion prompt you'll use through the shared read, the task. We have a rubric along with a space for that important teacher feedback. And for at least the first 2 weeks of lessons, Jaleesa and I scripted everything out for you. We don't mean that to be that it's a mandate and you have to read directly from that. It's really more of a guide to see how another teacher might present the lesson, or for your very beginning teachers who they've never tried a shared read before, it gives them a starting point. So we provided all of the language for you, where to stop. There are some little tips on what students need to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk through this lesson. As we were developing the lesson, we looked at this key features document. So again, this document is also universal to kindergarten through 8th grade. And it's just a reminder of the elements that you want to include within your lessons. So for read alouds and shared read, in the shared read, you're going to see me explicitly showing a strategy. I'm going to be looking at print and what the meaning is. I'm going to be doing some think alouds and some modeling. There's some open-ended questions. And then we want to encourage our students to use those strategies that they see us modeling. We want to see them using them during their independent reading. So we went through this process as we were developing the lessons as well. That was a little bit more of a guide of what to include, and that document is linked here for you. So as I go to the actual lesson, you will see that I created a slideshow for this lesson. So starting with the learning intention and success criteria that I would show my students. Then from the Reading Strategies book, I created an online anchor chart. So this is directly from her book, and there is a link to the page as well if you want some additional background information. So I created this anchor chart. I would review this with the students of our strategy is this, and we really want to know a little bit more about the character and how they are feeling. It's something we want to notice within a story as we read. So I would review this anchor chart with them. You'll notice the third bullet point on the right-hand side says use a word to describe the feeling. I tied that into their final task, which is just a little quick exit ticket where they actually have to choose a word to describe the feeling that they think Percy feels at this moment. So here is the close read model. For, I believe, a total of 4 lessons, Jaleesa and I recorded ourselves actually presenting the lesson as we would to students. So I'm going to share my close read model with you. I'm not going to share the entire thing because it is about 10 minutes long. I'm only going to share about 5 minutes of it. If you wanted to follow along, there is a copy here of the text selection that I chose. And before we get started, it looks like, Robert, you have a question?
Yeah, what will the kids have? Will this be in docs? Will they have the templates for these, or is this just something going to copy down as we go?
So this is going to be available to you on the website. If you choose to make a copy of this slideshow and push it out to your students via Google Classroom, you are more than welcome to do that.
Well, I thought more in the respect that they would have the frame and they would have to take notes on how to do this. So it doesn't matter. We can do this as we go. But
Are you meaning the actual text, a copy of the text?
for example, how's the character feeling? That could be easily open, and as I go, they copy down. You know, as I make a bullet, and then we discuss what the character's feeling, and there's all kinds of ways it could be used.
Right. So within the lesson plan, what I've provided for you is a copy of the text that we're going to be reading together, so they can have a copy of the text to make notes on.
Okay. All right, thanks. Sorry for these questions.
No, they're great questions because I think everyone will use the materials a little bit differently. And so you're just kind of helping me think about how someone might use them slightly differently and making sure that you have everything that you need available to you. So not a problem at all. All right, so let's see. Okay, so we're moving. And I'm going to fast forward a little bit. The beginning is just me setting up the close read for them because this is their first experience with a close read that very first week of school. So I'm kind of talking them through the purpose and things like that. Here is about where I'm going to start the annotating and the thinking about the text. Again, as Robert mentioned, I would want students to have a copy of this text. I would want them to make notes on their copy of the text as they're listening, as they're thinking, as they're adding to the discussion. Paper down, you'll be able to see my numbering. So I'm going to get started reading. Here we go. Mr. Bruner had this look that wouldn't let you go. Intense brown eyes that could have been 1,000 years old and had seen everything. You must learn the answer to my question, Mr. Bruner told me. About the Titans? About real life and how your studies apply to it. Oh, what you learned from me, he said, is vitally important. I expect you to treat it as such. I will accept only the best from you, Percy Jackson. I wanted to get angry. This guy pushed me so hard. So I'm going to stop there because that's the first chunk that I want to read. And I'm going to ask that you think about what we've read. And when we think about what we've read, we often annotate. And if we look at this word annotate, you're going to see that right here is part of the word note. So it's really about taking note in the margins. And there's a few reasons why we do that. One is we can capture your feelings as the reader. Two is as you're reading or rereading like we're doing now, I might want to make notes that I'm not going to forget about later because your teacher is going to ask you some questions and you're going to want to have those notes so that you have something prepared that you want to talk about. Sometimes it's your reaction to the text. Maybe you have a question and that's something you want to bring up in discussion. So here the text is telling us that he wants to get angry. I'm going to underline this section. I want to know, why does he feel this way? Why does he immediately want to get angry? Are there other feelings involved here? So I want you to stop and think about, why is Percy immediately turning to getting angry? Okay, and we're back, and I have a couple of your ideas written down here. There may be more that you think of as we continue writing. So we're actually looking at two purposes for reading today. One of them is to really dive into how the character is feeling. The other is, and we will constantly do this, is to look at new vocabulary. So I want to go back and I want to look at a word right here in line 9, and it's vitally. And I want to talk about this complex vocabulary. Sometimes vocabulary is complex or difficult because it's brand new and you may have never heard it before. Sometimes we have complex vocabulary because it's the name of people we've never heard of or places we've never heard of. So here we have the text which reads, "What you learn from me is vitally important. I expect you to treat it as such. I will accept only the best from you, Percy Jackson." So here the word vitally means absolutely important. So it's just a higher level way of saying that. Vitally sometimes can mean that it's like related to life or death. And so that might be what Mr. Bruner is alluding to, is that the things that Percy needs to learn are important for the rest of his life. And he makes that statement and he gives Percy that feeling throughout this section of the text. So now I want to have you talk a little bit about, why would Mr. Bruner feel this way? Why would he think that learning these studies are absolutely vital to Percy Jackson? All right, good. So one of you came up with the idea that Mr. B might be really pushing him to really learn all of this information because maybe, just maybe, Mr. Bruner knows something about Percy being a demigod, and that's something that Percy brought up in the very, very beginning. So it's not going to be a surprise to us as a reader. So So maybe Mr. Bruner is in on it some way, and he's trying to kind of tell Percy that it's important because of where he comes from. So I'm going to continue on, and I'm going to keep reading. And what I want you to do is, as I'm reading out loud, you're going to whisper read. And so when you whisper read, you're just going to move your lips. You don't need to read out loud. And especially since you're all muted, I won't be able to hear you anyway. Okay, I'm going to stop the video there. You get the general idea. As we move on later throughout this piece, the discussion really gets into more about how Percy is feeling. So if you want to read out loud, sorry. So after I finish my shared read, and actually there's a couple of questions in the chat box, and Montrell, if you wouldn't mind jumping in and addressing some of those questions, if you could, about the copies of the text for students. Is she here? Is she still with us? All right, so the last question, are they able to annotate on a PDF? There is a Chrome extension called Kami, K-A-M-I. I did put a link to it at the end of the presentation. They can use that extension to annotate on a PDF. I've also included a Google Doc copy, which is a not protected copy that students can go in, they can highlight the text, and they can add comments along the side in Google Docs. So you have two choices as far as what you push out to students. For this shared read, this is the only section of the text they will need because it's highly focused here. For the read alouds, you are the only person who needs a copy of the text. For read alouds, students do not need a copy to follow along. They're focusing on the listening. So these lessons, students do not need an actual copy. Where students might need an actual copy is if you're having them go back to the text to look for specific evidence to answer questions, or if you choose to have them read the book independently. So we have put that question in the district parking lot, like how do we get books in the hands of students? Because it is a question up along with other materials, how do we get those in the hands of students? So after I finish my close read and I continue to focus in on Percy and how he's feeling, I would push out this exit ticket to students that Percy feels blank because blank. So they're responding with their one word feeling and then they're explaining it. This could be something that students respond to in the chat box at the end of your lesson. It could actually be pushed out in a flip grid if you wanted to create a flip grid. If you wanted to put this question on a Google Doc and have them turn it in Classroom, it could be there, or a form, or you could use Padlet. Now in chat box, one of the features is you can turn off that students are responding to everyone and students can just respond to you if you want to have them keep their responses private. So that's another little trick along the way. It looks like, yes, Eric, you can have them respond in Zoom in a chat box, absolutely. And I'm just looking at my other screen. I have two screens going right now, which is really helpful so that I can see the chat and I can see my screen. So I do want to make sure that all the questions are answered. Montrell is popping in. She is responding to some of your questions as well. All right, so at this time, it's been another like 30-minute stretch. We're going to take a little bit of a stretch break, a 2-minute break. If you want to watch the video, if you want to dance along with the video, go right ahead. The video is only 1 minute long. If you want to get up, take a stretch, please do so, and I'll meet you back here in 2 minutes.
Yeah! Come on. Work it. Let me see you move something. Work it. Come on. Let me see you
get up, get down. Everybody move your body. Let me see you shake that body. Come on and work that body. Drop it like hot. Get up, get down. Everybody move your body.
Let me see you
get up, get down. Everybody move your body. Let me see you shake that body. Come on and work that body. Drop it like hot. Get up, get down. Everybody move your body. Let me see you shake that body. Come on and work that body. Let me see you shake that body. Come on and work that body.
Let me see you
get up, get down. Everybody move your body. Let me see you shake that body. Come on and work that body. Drop it like it's hot. Get up, get down. Everybody move your body. Let me see you shake that body.
All right, and we'll be back in about 45 seconds. So if you need to still take a quick break, please do so. Okay, everyone, I'm going to bring us back. Montreal has had several questions that she's addressing in the chat box. So if you do not have your chat box open, please open that up and take a look at the questions and the answers. Some really, really good questions as we move into this, this new year of new learning. Unfortunately, I think there are more questions than we have answers to. So I appreciate you being patient with us and giving us some grace as we're trying to guide you through this as best as we can. So now we're going to be exploring the Google site which was created. And I need to really give props to our tech task team for putting this site together, because they took what every content area team has been working on and they organized it in just such a beautiful way. The site is the DFP. You'll hear the DFP quite often. Doesn't stand for anything. It's just the URL shortener. So just to give you a brief overview, if you haven't been here yet, you are going to have a chance to explore it with a group. We're going to focus in on grade level lessons. You're going to go to 6th grade. You're going to go to ELA. And then you're going to see your essential standards, your unit plan here, all in one convenient place. Week 1, all of your lesson plans as well. In addition, there is a folder here that says 6th grade ELA Drive folder. So as Jaleesa and I continue to be responsive to some of your questions and concerns, we're adding things to that folder to help you get started. So everything we add will be in this Drive folder. So if you have a request for something, if you see something is missing, we can add it to the ELA Drive folder and you will have immediate access to it. So I'm going to go back to the presentation real quickly just to get you set up and being responsive to your needs. Last time in your breakouts, you only had 5 minutes, and I apologize that that was a limited amount of time. Normally I'd give more. We're just limited with our amount to present today. What you're gonna do is, I'm gonna put you in a breakout room again, and with your group that you're with, and there will only be 3 groups, you will be very large groups. Explore either a read aloud lesson or explore a shared reading
Talk
lesson.
on my Zoom. I'm just letting you know.
Okay. Or explore a writing lesson and have a discussion. There isn't anything to type, so if you would please nominate one person who's going to speak from your group to share out. So you're going to have 10 minutes to kind of dive in and
Can you
collaborate into this work together.
stop, Stephanie? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, number one, welcome to the PDC, aka it really is a call center in here, which is why I'm on mute. But just a heads up, some of the lessons may be a little wonky because I had to go through and move everything into folders and into different folders that were in a different place. And so some of them are still, like, if you go to a link and it doesn't work, that's why. Give it a few minutes, or probably by tomorrow, because I was told to do that today. I've just been moving them, and then now some people are having trouble getting access. So if you don't have access, don't freak out. You will have access by tomorrow. Sorry about that. There's 9 of us in this room.
All right, thank you, Montreal.
That's why you can hear all of them talking in the back.
Okay. So you are going to do 2 things simultaneously. One, you'll, with your team that you are in a breakout room with, you will explore one lesson. So decide on one lesson that you're going to look at and one lesson plan. Have a discussion about it. Have a discussion about what you might add to it. Have a discussion about how are you going to make this work in the virtual world. And you have 10 minutes to do that. And then be prepared for someone to please share out. Okay, I'm putting you in rooms now. Again, room 1 is read aloud, 2 is shared read, 3 is writing. And you're looking at that DFP website now.
Angela, are you there?
I'm here. I didn't go to one this time.
Okay,
Yeah.
me neither. I'm not
here,
going to go to
but
one.
let me stop recording, because in the past I've recorded our conversations and I'm like, I don't know that I should be doing that.
No, this conversation. I don't care if you record it.
Okay.
No, our naming conventions were all over the place. The websites were not consistent in the way that they were built and they were looking. So we're working on fixing that. And so if you hop into, you guys may want to hop into a breakout room because they legit might not work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
Okay.
I don't know what's going on with that. So
Thank you.
with this group too, because they're super inquisitive.
Yes.
Okay.
Let me go to
Their
this.
questions are really good.
Yeah.
Yes. So
you're not
go
getting
ahead.
my private messages though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So let me get to
Okay.
this breakout room.
Take a picture of those, Jaleese, and send
Okay.
those to me, please.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Elise, which room are you going to?
It's 2.
Okay. And Ms. Montrell going to 2 as well?
I don't know. That's the one I was assigned to.
Okay.
I'm not gonna go to one because my sound keeps going in and out. It's just not well. I'm excited that it's worked this long.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna go now.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to go into 3.
All right.
Angela, if you're speaking right now, I can't hear you.
Thank you so much. I muted everyone, including myself. So again, lessons learned as we move through this Zoom universe. So we're going to start with group 1. If you were in that breakout room, any reflections on anything that you shared? I know my group talked about some ways that this was actually going to be very positive. So group 1, do we have a spokesperson?
Guys, it's Carrie. I'll go ahead and talk. We talked about how it was nice that it was laid out for us and where we're going to stick our materials from our previous lessons in it, or if our PLCs have already decided to do a different book, how are we going to incorporate that into this plan for us, and just trying to find our personalities and put it in there.
Absolutely. And again, it is a foundation, and adding your own creativity, your own personality to these lessons is critically important as you build those relationships with your students. So that's awesome. Was there anyone else from breakout room 1 who wanted to add anything? You can just unmute yourself. Okay, let's move on to breakout room 2. You were looking at the shared reading lessons. Okay, we'll come back to group 2. Jaleese, I think you were in that room. You might want to nominate someone to speak.
They just talked about how a challenge would be not having either access to the book for the kids or not having a document camera.
Okay, and we'll talk a little bit about a document camera, because that the video I shared with you, I actually didn't have a document camera. I recorded that using my phone as a document camera, which is why you don't see my face. I just moved my phone to capture what I was creating, and then I uploaded that to my Google Drive. Some of the lessons I used my laptop camera and video and did it in one take. And then another lesson, I actually used Zoom. I created a Zoom meeting, and I just had myself in the meeting so I could share my screen. So the students could see my face. They could hear my voice as I was explaining the lesson. So those are just a couple of options. There's also Screencastify, if you're familiar with WeVideo, or even Flipgrid. So quite a few ways to get around not having a document camera. Thank you, Jaleese. How about group 3?
This is Todd Musser. I got nominated to float in outer space and share our thoughts. We were talking about a number of the benefits that we might come into, particularly with being able to have students stay more focused by muting those distracting voices and controlling the chat box by setting it to the private settings, so that students who might typically cause disruptions wouldn't have that opportunity. And then also the benefits of each student being able to see as we share our screen and model writing for them. Each student will be able to see that model just right there in front of them without distractions of classroom or distance or vision interfering with that. So a lot of positives in being able to move forward with their writing.
Yes, and your group was really really positive, coming up with a lot of great solutions to some of those problems. So that was awesome. Thank you for sharing. Go back to sharing my screen, and thank you for sharing out and sharing just some ways that we can problem solve together. Moving on. So now we're going to get to independent reading, and we're just going to spend a little bit of time here. And I've actually provided for you a flipped learning opportunity. And this might be one way you use your asynchronous time, is to assign flipped learning to your students. So this is just an example. It is actually an adult example. So if you wanted to learn more about independent reading, you're going to read the article, and I've linked them. And there's a couple of videos for you to actually see a reading conference take place. And reading conferences are very powerful to see that your students are understanding the independent reading that they're doing on their own. Here at the virtual independent reading conferences, I attended this PD, which was given by our own C&I department back in May. I provided you with the slides to go through when you have time. So again, this is a flipped learning opportunity for you to go back and check that out. Here we have percentile ranks of students, just 20 minutes a day, 21 minutes a day of that independent reading that students add, what it can do for them. So how critically important that is. This graphic was taken from this book, 180 Days, which is where we took a lot of our ideas, basically. At the bottom, we've included for you, it's just a sample. You may create your own, a sample reading log for students to keep track of their reading. So if you didn't know how to get started or how to create one, there is one there for you. Also, I am going to click on this Track Your Thinking chart. This is from the book 180 Days. And here there are many, many question stems to get your students to begin writing about what they are reading. So every time they read, they should be writing. For sixth grade, I would highly recommend that you start with these thought starters at the beginning. That I noticed, I wondered, I think. These kind of statements are very easy for your students to have access to, very accessible. And then later, as you're building your lessons, you're showing them how to keep track of character and big ideas. Then you can move into having them answer some of these questions as they're reading independently. On the next slide, one of my colleagues has created for you some additional collaboration apps. So there are links directly to Padlet, Jamboard. Kami is the PDF extension we spoke about earlier that students can actually annotate on a PDF. Then we've got some digital reading resources. So how do we get books in the hands of our kids? CNN 10 isn't reading, but it is listening comprehension, which is an important skill that students need to learn during this school year. Here we've got even more resources for you. So if you are an ELD teacher, the EL department here at BCSD has come up with some strategies for you. So if you click on that link, that will take you to their list of strategies. If you are not very familiar with StudySync and the online platform, I highly recommend that you sign up for one of their webinars. They are free. Most of them are 30 minutes. Some of them are an hour. I've participated in several of them. The California Basic Training, if you're new to StudySync, it's almost a must, and this is next week. There are also sessions on teaching EL and using the EL resources, how to assign resources from the StudySync library. So this is a great resource for you to come back to and sign up. These articles were provided, or this article was provided by the district. So how to increase engagement, This article here, 9 Ways Online Teaching Should Be Different. This is from Cult of Pedagogy. If you do not follow her blog, it is very research-based. It's wonderful. It's a great site to go to learn some new things. Here, if you're interested in some district-wide collaboration, so as you move into where you're creating your own lessons, maybe you're creating CFAs, if you want to be a part of our shared drive, we have about 20 teachers who've signed up so far, where we're going to share resources, share ideas, not just with our own PLC, but from schools across the district. You can join here. It's a form. So if you fill in the Google form, I have your permission to add you to that shared drive. So we're going to come back to our purpose and our objective, and I am going to use one of the Zoom features. And if you click on your participants button up in your Zoom taskbar, once you click on participants, a box will pop up, and there will be a yes, a no, a go slower, a go faster. What I'd like for you to do is just thinking about the success criteria. Do you understand the essential learning standards for students? And can you find the resources to begin planning and using and implementing for this year? You're just going to click on either yes or no. And as a feature on my screen as the host, what it does is it tallies your responses. So right now I have 8 people who've responded. We do have 40 participants. Here I have a thumbs up as well. Thank you. I don't have any no responses, and I don't have any thumbs down. So this is a really good check for understanding you can use with your students, is the thumbs up and thumbs down tally, or the yes and no tally. In addition, the upgraded version of Zoom allows you to create poll questions. Thanks, Carrie, I see your thumbs up as well. So you can actually push questions out to students and have them respond, which is a cool feature as well. All right, so we have some shortened links for you to go back to some of the resources. We are going to put in the evaluation and your sign out links as well, because our presentation is finished for today. We went through quite a bit of information, and I appreciate hearing from those of you who found it very helpful. If you have further questions about how to use any of the tools, or if you have other deeper questions that pertain to you, please stay in the Zoom and we'll be happy to answer those questions. But right now, as soon as you fill out your eval and your sign out, you are free to go. Thank you again for attending our session, and I wish you all the best of luck this year.
Where's the eval information? I mean, not the eval, but the sign out.
Jaleese is putting that right now into the chat.
The first link was the evaluation. The second link is the sign out.
There's no link.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I've also placed them in the presentation itself.
Thank you both for everything. It looks great. Really appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Thanks for
you.
joining us.
Oh,
And if you have any questions, our email addresses are on the very first slide, or second slide, I should say. Please reach out with any questions. Thanks, Todd. You are awesome. Hey, Gloria, I'm glad you could make it.
Loved it. Thank you.
Robert, if you type the link into your web browser, it'll take you straight to the sign out sheet. And same for you, Sherry. Just type, the link is go.bcsd.com/DQT. If you just type it into your computer, it'll sign you, take you right to the sheet.
All right, she's got it.